and welcome back, everybody, to the BaseLINE podcast. I'm your host, Ben Newman. Now, our special guest today is a Michigan native hailing from Coopersville, Michigan, just northwest of Grand Rapids, and he's a former Boston Red Sox pitcher. Please welcome my special guest, Mr. Jim Wright. Jim, how you doing today?
Good, Ben. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Now, Jim, like I just mentioned, you have lived in Coopersville, Michigan since you're about the age of 4. But when did you start playing baseball?
At 8 years old, started in the Little League in Coopersville. Back then, the 8-year-olds played with the 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12-year-olds. So,
what was it about the game that you loved so much?
I don't know. My parents claimed I picked up a baseball when I was 18 months old and was throwing and had a good form even when I was that young. I love the game. It's a great game.
Yeah, of course. And Jim, obviously we all have dreams of our own, but when did you realize that your dream was to become a professional baseball player?
At 8 years old when I played. Yes, when I started playing Little League and it was competitive and I was able to compete, and I just decided that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And you were certainly a stellar baseball player playing at Coopersville High School, and in 1969 you got drafted right out of high school to play in the Red Sox organization. How do you think playing at Coopersville really helped prepare you to get drafted by the Red Sox?
Well, I had a good coach, and Mr. Freiberg was his name, Bill Freiberg, and he put my name out there. He actually sent letters to all the big league clubs, and before I knew it, when I was a junior in high school, they started coming out and watching me.
It's definitely an honor to be able to get drafted out of high school. Not many players can really say that they have the opportunity to go straight to the pros from high school.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised. I went to some tryouts or went to one tryout with Pittsburgh when I was 16 years old, and they liked me and my speed and stuff, but they weren't that interested as far as pitching goes. But as I went on, I raised some eyebrows, and I did well in high school. And anyway, some scouts big name scouts were out and watched, and I was drafted. I think it was number 4. I think in 1969 with Boston.
I mean, for your first few years in the minors, you did struggle a little bit, but in 1973 you really turned things around. 7.4 record, 3.07 ERA for the Winston-Salem Red Sox. What do you think it was about this season, or even leading up to this season, that helped you make those improvements?
Well, my first for a few years, I didn't throw a whole lot of innings. I chose to go into the National Guard, and I think that took a lot of my baseball time away from me, because I had to come home every month and spend 2 weeks during the summer in the National Guard. And once I was finished with that, then my career kind of turned around, and I started getting a lot of innings in, and learned a lot of things. And I had some great coaches too in the minor leagues, Johnny Padres, and Sam Mealy was there, and I had some good coaches, and Stan Williams. And I think that at that time, I think I finally realized I got confidence in myself, and I realized that I could pitch at the professional level good.
Yeah, definitely. And like you just mentioned, on top of being in the minors, you were also in the National Guard. You just talked about, how it kind of took you away from baseball, but on one side, how do you think that being in the National Guard and having that time away from baseball hurt your progression? But on the flip side, on a physicality perspective, how do you think being in the National Guard helped you stay in physical shape for baseball?
Well, I did. When I came home, you had to do a lot of physical things in the National Guard, which kept you hiking and stuff like that. It kept it in shape. But I did throw when I was here and was home. And I sometimes I wonder if I wouldn't have been better off to just have been drafted and spent my 2 years. But I didn't want to miss 2 complete years, so I went to the National Guards. And I guess I don't regret it. At the way it worked out, once I did finish my 6 years and was able to get in and just focus on nothing but baseball, then my career kind of turned around.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Later down the line, you'd play for the Pawtucket Red Sox for 3 seasons, and these were 3 pretty up and down seasons where you found yourself out of the rotation at some point, weren't really perceived as a prospect, but you were able to turn around towards the end of your AAA tenure and really caught the attention of the scouts. What was it about the lack of belief that you saw during these 3 seasons that really drove you to excel?
Well, in my first year at Pawtucket, I was at, I started that season at Bristol, Connecticut, and went 7-1, I think, and was called up. My ERA and everything, I was pitching the same, but when I got to Pawtucket, things turned around. We didn't score a lot of runs that year. I had almost the identical same ERA, but my record was, I think, I only won 1 game, 1 in 10 or something like that. And but I was pitching well. I still had confidence in myself. And when the next year, I think it was my second year at Pawtucket, that was a down year. And I'm not sure. During that season, I started doing different things with pitches and trying to make my ball move a little more. I could throw hard, but my ball was kind of straight. So I learned through talking to some of the other pitchers and the coaches and stuff, I learned to put a little sink on the ball, change speeds, and that's what turned it around for me, was the getting my ball to sink and getting a lot of ground balls, starting pitching to contact instead of trying to strike people out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've always found this very interesting when it comes to pitchers, but obviously every pitcher has a different set of pitches in their arsenal. What pitches did you have, and what were some of your favorites to throw?
Well, everybody said my best pitch was my curveball, but I think it was my command of my fastball, different fastball. I had one that I cut, the four-seamer that I had read an article by Bob Gibson, and he was really, it helped him to get inside on left-handers and stuff, So I started cutting the ball, and when I went inside on lefties, and it would move just enough to get in on their hands and stuff, and I started sinking the ball, and I think the curveball was a pitch that I would go to when I needed that strikeout. When I had a guy on third or something with less than 2 outs, that I needed a strikeout, that's the pitch that I went to.
Now, Jim, finally in 1978, at the age of 27, you made your Red Sox debut, where you came in and went 3-out for 1 relief inning. Talk about this moment after 9 seasons in the minors, being able to finally make your pro debut.
Well, I remember going to the mound and being nervous, but I still was able to concentrate on what I was doing, and I think I threw 3 pitches to, I think it was Kurt Balakwa. Yeah, was my first hitter. And I struck him out, and then I struck the next guy out on 3 pitches, and I had 2 strikes. On the third guy, it was Bump Wills, I think, and the crowd stood up and started cheering, and I'd never heard that. I remember having trouble putting my foot back down on the rower, holding it still. I was so nervous. But then when I got him out, he had a ground ball, I think the second, and got him out, and I realized that, I can pitch up here. And it was a great feeling after that many years in the minor leagues. And that was my dream, and I finally got there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, the Red Sox's field is a very historic field. I mean, Fenway Park. What was it like to be able to play in such a historic stadium?
Oh, that place is amazing. The people, it seems like the people are sitting right next to you, and you can hear them talking to you. And the fans were great there. And the stadium it's you walk into that place, and it's a real eye opener. It's like, it was great.
Your rookie season would go on to be a very phenomenal one, finishing 8-4, 3.57 ERA, and finishing second in Rookie Pitcher of the Year. I mean, you were heavily considered by many Boston newspapers to be the Red Sox Rookie of the Year. It seems like you adjusted to the pros very well. Were there any? I mean, you obviously mentioned some nerves already in the beginning, but were there ever really any nerves going to these games? And if so, how would you go about pushing them aside?
Well, I knew my role. We had a very good pitching staff that year. We had Bill Lee, Mike Torres, Dennis Eckersley, Louis Tiant. So I knew that it was going to be hard for me to break into the starting rotation. So I threw a lot on the side. Some of the catchers would get tired of me throwing in the bullpen because I threw a lot. I had to maintain my command of my fastball in order to be effective with my breaking pitches and stuff. And I remember that it was I just threw a lot on the side, and I just had a mindset that when I was called on, I was going to do everything I could do to get people out, and I didn't worry about being named one of the starters or anything like that right away. But it was kind of interesting. The way I found out that I was pitching, it was a double. The first start was I was in the bullpen, and my former manager at Double A was Stan Williams. He was the pitching coach on the Chicago White Sox, and it was during the first game I was in the bullpen. And we had a second game coming up afterwards. He says, "Who's pitching that second game?" And I went, "I don't know." He says, "I do." And he walked away. and that's but I didn't find out until I went in to get a sandwich, and the pitching coach came up to me. Al came up to me and gave me the ball and said, "You got 25 minutes." And I threw my sandwich away and ran out to the bullpen. But I think it helped as far as I didn't have that time to get nervous or anything like that. I just went out, did everything the way I normally do, started out throwing at the outside corner for a right-handed hitter, because that keeps my shoulder in, and once I established that, then I went back to moving the ball around, and I was ready, and I was quite thrilled at the results I got.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's definitely a nerve-wracking experience, just being able to get the ball and get told that you only have 25 minutes to prepare for your role, but I feel like you're able to really accomplish your goals very early on, for sure.
Yeah, like I just had it in my head. I wasn't going to pay any attention to the crowd. That where Carlton held his glove, that's where I was going to try to hit. And I didn't shake him off much. He was a very, very good catcher. And I just had full confidence on what he was doing back there, and he knew the hitters better than I did at that time. So I just went with what he wanted. And it worked out real well.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, unfortunately, after this phenomenal rookie season, that winter you did go on to tear a muscle in your rotator cuff and, virtually halting your professional career. A lot of people give up when things don't go their way, but it seemed like you really never gave up on that dream. How were you able to push yourself to just really keep going after that injury?
It's what I wanted to do, and I still felt I could pitch. And I tried to throw a lot, even after I hurt my arm in Venezuela. I came back that spring, and they put me on the DL right away. But when I came back, I felt like my arm was starting to come back a little bit. And I started the one ball game, and I went 5 2/3 before I gave up base hit. I think it was an infield swinging bunt or whatever. But after 6 innings, he had told me I'd only go 5 before I started. And when I got in the 5th inning, he told me to go back out there. But when I came in after the 6th, he said, "I'm glad they got that hit because they would have lynched me if I'd taken you out of the game with a perfect game." But that's the only start. And then my arm just, it locked up. When you hurt your arm, hurt a muscle, tear a muscle like I did, other muscles take over. Well, this big muscle that surrounds your shoulder blade had developed so much that I started to lose my range of motion. But they sent me to therapy during the winter after that. I'd been dropped down to the AAA contract. But I did go to through therapy, and I'd gotten my range of motion back, and when I went to spring training, I was throwing well in spring training, and I went in to ask them if they were going to pitch me or just leave me. So, well, I went through 1 year after that. I'm sorry, I went through 1 year at Pawtucket, and I didn't throw very well, and but the following year, my arm started to build back up again, and I felt I could pitch, but they weren't going to pitch me, so I asked for my release.
Yeah, and now that you mentioned that, you were asked actually to help coach for the Red Sox right before asking for your release. Do you ever regret not taking this coaching opportunity?
Yeah, there are times, because I would have loved to have stayed in baseball, but asking I felt that was the only way, that I had only road I had to get back to the big leagues. So I took it, and yeah, sometimes I regret. I burned a bridge there, and the Red Sox organization was a great organization, great people, and I loved it there. And sometimes I do.
Now, 3 years in the minors and the pros, you've obviously come out across countless amounts of batters. Who would you say were some of the best hitters that you pitched against?
Well, Rod Carew has to be one of the best. The Yankees had several guys on there, Reggie Jackson. I personally, when I did well against the Angels, but Joe Rudy always seemed to get a hit off me. Andre Thornton, he was very good. They had some good hitters in that league. George Brett, yeah, they really did. So yeah, there was a number of hitters that were great.
Now, Jim, throughout your career, you spent a lot of time both as a starter pitcher, but also as a relief pitcher. I mean, I remember in my career when I was pitching that I seemed to do a lot better when I was in relief, but was there ever one role that you preferred over the other?
Oh, I wanted to start. From the very beginning, I wanted to be a starter. But I did spend times going back and forth in the minor leagues where they would have me in the bullpen and have me start. But I wanted to be a starter.
What was it about starting that you loved so much?
Starting, I knew when I was going to pitch. And I could prepare for it. I knew how much I had to throw in between. And when I could, I didn't have to worry about anything else. But relieving there was a plus too, because every day you went to the ballpark, there was a shot at getting in the game, and that's what you wanted to do, was compete. But I really did like starting more.
Jim, we mentioned it a little bit before, but in my opinion, your story shows a lot of grit, determination, and really belief in yourself when no one else does. With your children growing up, how did you instill that same amount of self-confidence with your children?
I have good kids. It was pretty easy with them. They've all got their own personalities, their own, but they're very, very diligent about what they want to do. They work hard at what they want to do, and if they want something, I've always told them that they had to go out and work for it. Nobody gives you anything. You go work for it.
Absolutely. Now, obviously, we mentioned it a little bit before, but you did turn down that coaching role for the Red Sox. Have you ever considered coaching baseball after your playing career?
Yeah, I did. I did send some feelers out there to see if there was any interest, but I'd spent almost my whole career with the Red Sox. So the ones that sent me replies and stuff said that that's the place I should go to try to get back into baseball. But it was very difficult because I did. The organization, I'm sure, felt like they had did me a favor by sticking with me as long as they had and giving me that shot. And at the same time, I felt like when they wouldn't give me that last chance, that the only way I was going to get back up there was to go somewhere else.
Yeah, absolutely. But even a more minor coaching role, did you ever consider going back to Coopersville High School and trying to be a coach there?
Yeah, and I did. I coached at assistant coach, pitching coach or whatever, and I enjoyed it. I did that for 7, 8, 10 years, something like that. And I just kind of followed my kids through Little League and the travel ball and stuff. I took teams and did that, and I enjoyed it. I really did, and I miss it. And sometimes I miss it now. I might even get back in there and help my grandkids a little bit now that they're starting to play.
Yeah, and absolutely. And as a pitching coach for Coopersville, what did you love the most about really being able to give back to these younger athletes?
Well, you know, I enjoyed it. It was such fond memories I have from my high school experiences and stuff that I just wanted to give them some tools so that they could feel some of that same accomplishments that I did going through school, and I did everything I could do to help them out, show them pitches and stuff like that. I can't say enough about what coaches and stuff in high school do for the kids and help them out. It does help to shape them for things to come.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Jim, obviously your career didn't go as well as you had planned, but what would you say you missed the most about playing?
The competing.
Yeah.
The one-on-one thing that I always liked. I miss the competing most of all. Yeah.
Now, finally, Jim, for any young athlete out there that has the same dream of wanting to become a professional baseball player, what advice would you give them?
Don't listen to the critics. Kind of listen to your own mind. Know what you can do, what you're capable of doing, and if you've got a drive to accomplish that, keep striving for it. Don't do everything you can do to gain any knowledge you can about what you want to do, and kind of look at those people that have already done it, and try to pick up every little thing you can do from those people.
Yeah, absolutely. Self-belief is very important. Jim, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. It was really nice to see you.
Well, thank you, Ben. I appreciate you having me on.
Of course. But that's going to wrap it up for us today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in to the BaseLINE podcast. Thank you to Jim Wright for coming on and talking about his playing career with the Boston Red Sox. If you enjoyed the video, please like, please subscribe. Please make sure to follow us on both YouTube, Instagram, and Spotify for more content coming up. With all that being said, guys, thank you again so much for watching the BaseLINE podcast. I'm your host, Ben Newman, and we'll catch you guys next time.